Greetings, one and all. Richard Fulmer here, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles. So this past weekend, I tootled off to the waterfront here in Cape Town, along with a good friend of mine, Noel Small, and we went to go check out a vinyl fair. Happens there quite often, and I was pretty lucky this time around. I came out with a dozen albums. So what I've decided to do is split it into two, 6 today, and then the following episode will be the other 6 that I found. Of course, the other great thing of going is hooking up with people that I haven't seen for some time. Very good friends of mine, Fardil, I saw Brendan, Barney that I haven't seen for, many years. And a lot of these guys I worked with, and some are customers. And yeah, that's the other great thing, hooking up with like-minded people and chatting about music and what everybody's been up to and who's got older and wider and grayer. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it's another great day here in Cape Town. It's been really hot of late. And I must say, while I was there at the vinyl fair, they got quite a low ceiling. I was sweating. Well, hopefully I lost a few kilograms. Okay, so we're going to get stuck into, I'm not going to get into too much detail on each album, just a quick rundown of what I found. And the first one that I came across, the thing with these vinyl fairs is unless you're extremely picky, for me, if the record looks fine and it sounds okay, it doesn't have to be pristine, I'm happy. If the cover's a bit bent or whatever, as is this one, it's fine. Beck Ola from Jeff Beck, there's that great apple, and this is on the Columbia label. Excuse me, coffee time. And I've always been after this. I've got the other one with the same lineup, the Jeff Beck group, going back to the early 70s. And in the lineup was Rod Stewart, when he still sang with a few balls, before he started doing songs for old ladies. This was Rod in his rock era. So he's there on vocals, guitar and bass, Ron Wood. And I must say, Ron Wood obviously went over to the Stones much later, also had a bunch of solo albums. Really good bass player, some cool bass on here. Early 70s, the bass is right up front. Piano, Nicky Hopkins. He was part of the Faces, also with Ron Wood and Rod Stewart. So there's your connection. They would go on to other things. Drums, Tony Newman, and of course on guitar, the late, great Jeff Beck. He just was a guitarist all on his own for me. There was nobody who sounded like Jeff Beck. And the weird thing is he didn't use a guitar pick. I don't know if he did back in the early days, but if you watch a lot of his footage, it's all finger work. It just makes it even more amazing. So what is on here? 1969 this came out. Great year for rock. All Shook Up. Of course, you know that. All Shook Up. Spanish Boots. That became a favorite track of Jeff Beck's. And it would many years later be covered by Joe Bonamassa, who also did a pretty good version. Girl from Mill Valley. And then Jailhouse Rock. Of course, another cover. Side 2, Plinth. Water Down the Drain. That's a great track with some cool guitar work. The Hangman's Knee. And then Rice Pudding. So there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tracks on here. But this is essential early Jeff Beck group stuff. Great bluesy rock. Like I said, Rod Stewart singing up a storm. Not much else I can show you. This is not a gatefold sleeve. This is just the record inside. And you can see the covers this record goes back a few years, so this has been through a few hands. That's the great thing about second-hand vinyl. You always wonder, who had this before me? And, the history behind it. There we go. Jeff Beck's Beck Ola. Let me just see. Yeah, that's right. Second one. I was glad I found this. A lot of these albums I have been after for some time, like Beck Ola. And this one from Jack Bruce. Songs for a Tailor. This is his debut solo album. Of course, I think this came out in 1970. Or was it maybe earlier? But I think he'd either just left Cream or he might have still been part of Cream. Some great work on here. Produced by Felix Pappalardi, of course, from Mountain. Never Tell Your Mother She's Out of Tune. How's that for a song title? Great stuff. There's some amazing bass work on here. Of course, Jack Bruce being the incredible bassist that he was. Also a really good vocalist, and he could hit the high notes as well. A couple of songs on here, quite amazing to see how the high notes that he could get. Theme for an Imaginary Western, that was also a mountain track. So you can see the connection there. Tickets to Waterfalls, Weird of Hermiston, and Rope Ladder to the Moon. That's the last track on side A. Rope Ladder to the Moon is a really cool track as well. Side 2, The Ministry of Bag, He the Richmond, Boston Ball Game, 1967. And that's a live track on here. That's why it says 1967. To Isengard and The Clear Out. Also an album which does not have much. That's just an advert thing inside there. There's a very young Jack Bruce. Sadly also no longer around. Really chuffed I got this album, and I think I picked this up for next to nothing really. That's another great thing about these fairs. You know, you can barter with the guys and haggle with the guys, and they'll drop their prices. Very few of them are sort of sticky about that kind of thing, which is what you want. Another one that I'm really glad I got, and this is, believe it or not, this is the first physical, whether it's CD, vinyl, or whatever, that I have of old Rory Gallagher. And for me, this is probably his standout album, Tattoo. And this goes back to the early 70s, 73 I think this is. And this is the classic lineup of keyboards of Lou Martin, bass Jerry McAvoy, played bass with Rory Gallagher, pretty much Rory Gallagher's entire career. Drums and percussion, Rod DeArth, I think that's how you say his surname, also sadly passed away. And recorded at Polydor Studios in London, produced by Rory Gallagher. And yeah, this album has got so many cool tracks. Tattooed Lady, the title track, I suppose it's called Tattoo. And then probably the best track on the album, Cradle Rock. Some incredible guitar work from, this is a man who is so underrated in the rock world. He never gets mentioned up with the Blackmores and the Jimmy Pages, and just as good, if not better sometimes. Also played a really cool acoustic guitar. 2020 Vision, They Don't Make Them Like You Anymore. Definitely applies to Rory Gallagher. And Living Like a Trucker. That's the last track. On to side 2. Sleep on a Clothesline. Who's That Coming? A Million Miles Away. That's a lengthy track on here. Beautiful track. And yeah, to me, that's also one of the standouts on here. And the last track is called Admit It. I love that cover. Tattoo. Rory Gallagher. So there's Rory in the middle there. There's he at the top. So I think that's Rod DeArth there, the drummer, keyboardist. And there's Jerry McAvoy, the bassist. If you can see that. Yeah. I think I picked this up for like $50, $100. Works for me. Next one, Traffic. I still need to get the very first album. What's it called? Mr. Fantasy. And I think one other. This one I have been after for a while. You can see it's cut off there and there. And their previous album, Low Spark of High Hill Boys, also was cut off. So it's supposed to look like a cube. Quite interesting what they used to do back in the day, the marketing. So here you've got Steve Winwood. That's Steve Winwood, of course, the main songwriter, musician, all-round genius of the band. And there's Jim Capaldi. Trying to think. Chris Wood's on here. Roger Hawkins. David Hood on drums. Rebop Kwaku Bark, and he was the percussionist. There's some really nice bongo work on here as well. A lot of these albums I haven't had a chance to listen to yet, especially the other 6 that I'm going to chat about. So once I've gone through those. Shootout at the Fantasy Factory, Roll Right Stones. That's quite a long track. I hadn't yet heard this album, so I've only given this a cursory listen, but it's more that sort of jazzy vein for Traffic. Quite lengthy tracks, like I mentioned, Roll Right Stones, Evening Blue, Tragic Magics, and Sometimes I Feel So Uninspired. It's quite a mellow album. It's not upbeat, and I think after this, Jim Capaldi left, or one of the other guys left, and I don't think there were too many albums after this. So this is towards the latter end of 73, I think. Well, the ones after this went full on jazz. But you can hear this is definitely very different to the early stuff, the early couple of albums. Love that cover. Shoot Out at the Fantasy Factory by Traffic. Another one which I'm really chuffed I got. I've been after this for many years. Stephen Stills. Simply entitled Stephen Stills. 1970. And there's some big names on here. Obviously, this is around the period of Crosby, Stills and Nash and Neil Young. But one of the tracks on here that I wasn't aware that he was on here features Jimi Hendrix. So this would be 1970. And in fact, this album is dedicated to James Marshall Hendrix. And they were quite good buddies, Hendrix and Stephen Stills. So the first song is Love the One You're With. And of course, that's a Crosby, Stills and Nash track as well. And that features Fuzzy Samuels, guitars, organ, steel drum, percussion, Stephen Stills. So he did a lot. Voices, Rita Coolidge, Priscilla Jones, John Sebastian, David Crosby, and Graham Nash. So there's all sorts of people on here. Engineered by Andy Johns, of course, the brother of Glyn Johns, the other well-known producer. Then you got the Do for Others, Do for the Others, Church, Old Times, Good Times, and then Go Back Home. And that features Eric Clapton. Old Times, Good Times is the one that features Jimi Hendrix. And you can hear Jimmy's guitar. Excellent stuff. Sadly, of course, Jimmy would be gone in 1970. Side 2, Sit Yourself Down, To a Flame, Black Queen, Cherokee, and We Are Not Helpless. Really chuffed I got this. I've got to say, he must have been working with a very small budget for the cover art. There he sits in the snow with his acoustic, and there's a sort of a camel, or what is this, a giraffe, sort of a toy giraffe. I suppose it means something to him, or it meant something to him. And there he is at the back on his horse. Stephen Stills, great voice, brilliant guitarist. And then finally, the last one I want to chat about for this first part of the two-part of what I picked up, Fairport Convention. Also a first for me. I don't have any of the other stuff. And probably their most well-known album, Legion Leaf. This is classic English folk rock from the early 70s, featuring the fantastic Sandy Denny, late Sandy Denny, who I first heard with Led Zeppelin on Led Zeppelin 3. She was part of one of the songs there. There's not many tracks on here, about 7 or 8 tracks. Sandy Denny on vocals, Ashley Hutchins on bass guitar, Dave Mattox on drums, who would later on go on to play for Jethro Tull, Simon Nicol guitars, Dave Swarbrick on violin, and of course Richard Thompson on guitar, who would also go on to have a big solo career. That's the middle there. Those are all different famous English folk sort of things that happen in England and what they mean and whatever. So it's very, very English feel to the album. And that's Sandy Denny there in the middle. Fairport Convention, Legion Leaf. Come On All Ye Ray, that's the first track. Excuse me. I'm talking too much. My favorite track on here, Matty Groves, quite a long track, and very much in the storytelling vein. Side 2, there's a medley. Yeah, so this is folk rock if you're in the mood, which I sometimes am. You know, I like to mix things up, really. And the record, I must say, is in pretty good nick. I'm sure this has been around the block a few times as well. So there we go. First 6 of the dozen albums that I found at the Waterfront Vinyl Fair. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please down below any comments. And yeah, hopefully there'll be another one soon. Of course, it also depends on the old cash. But yeah, there's always something to find at these fairs. And like I mentioned, you get to see a whole bunch of people you haven't seen for years. Take it easy, guys. I'll catch you next time for the rest of my vinyl haul. Have a great week. Bye-bye.